that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 408th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. And today is the 4th of March, 2021. We're going to start our show's news with what came up a week ago today, which was the 25th of February. And
we got an interesting picture of an ice storm in Texas.
Well, before we go to that, I should tell people, if you want to see the show, the articles that we're talking about, you can go to my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, or at the BCTV website or YouTube or wherever else you're plugging into this show. There are links that you can get to. One is a way to download the script that Tom and I use, and the other is a link to the website that Tom and I use for developing that script. The script is just pictures of what we're showing and then a little blurb with it.
Well, so some of these articles are well worth reading, going out. You got the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So click on the link and they'll come up. I'll try to alert you to some of the better ones.
Yep. So are we ready to go to the ice storm in Texas? We've been talking about this ice storm in Texas for quite a while.
No, this is the biggest thing that's happened in Texas since 2011, I think.
I think it's the biggest thing in Texas since they discovered oil.
Let's start out with a title.
Yeah.
From ignorance to greed to ideology to propaganda, the failures of the Texas grid.
Yeah, this is, it's sad what went on down there. There were a number of failures in Texas last week. And by last week, we mean a week before last, because this news we're reading is a week old, that were much bigger issues than renewable energy. The grid failures were predictable and avoidable. In fact, they were predicted. The state utilities and most municipalities all failed the citizens and the businesses of Texas.
By the way, I just heard today on the radio that the boss of the Texas grid just resigned.
Oh, did he? Well,
he resigned, but he's going to be there for 2 more months.
Well, they had an outage that was similar to this, but not as bad. And I don't remember the year anymore. Was that 2008, Tom? Do you remember?
Well, something happened in 2011.
2011, that's what it was. And it was a similar one. They also had one in 1988 where they had these same problems. And the last time it happened, the state came, actually, I think it was FERC came up with a statement that said, this is what people should be doing. And they developed what they called best practices.
But they never
implemented them. And, they want to blame wind turbines because they want to put the blame on somebody. And the wind turbines were probably the least problematical area that they had. They did have wind turbines offline. It was about 2 gigawatts worth that were offline. The rest of them were producing more than they would normally produce.
I got some quick takeaways that'll cover that.
Yeah, do that, Tom.
The natural gas system in Texas isn't winterized.
Yeah.
And subsequently froze in many places.
Yeah.
That's natural gas.
Yeah.
Coal piles were drenched, then froze, preventing the coal plants from operating. Now, ERCOT, which is the grid, has very light transmission links to the rest of North America.
Practically none.
Yeah. Solar and wind overperformed, delivering more electricity than expected. And finally, and this is a good one, the Green New Deal at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had nothing to do with that.
Well, they got the
government. Blame her.
Yeah, they're trying to blame. She went down there and she raised a bunch of money to help people. So what did they do? They blamed her. That was how it worked. And I mean, this is not good to do this. They should. And maybe the head of the ERCOT who resigned is willing to do this, just to say, look, we made a mistake. This is a problem. We should be dealing with it. But the state of Texas has its own grid because it wants to be independent, because they want not to have the federal government tell them what to do. And they had a best policies statement, but nobody followed it because there wasn't any enforcement, because they didn't want to have regulations. And the result of that was that people, pipes burst. And when they thawed, all of a sudden people had water just pouring out of their ceilings and stuff like that. It was really, really bad.
It just boils down to one thing: they weren't prepared.
They weren't prepared.
They could have been. They should have been, but they weren't.
Yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda, didn't. Okay, Tom, do you have more, or should we go on?
Now let's move along. We got a nice picture of Sequoia National.
Yeah, isn't that a pretty piece of landscape there? This particular article, that last article, by the way, came from Clean Technica, and so does this one.
I guess it does.
Do you have a title, Tom?
Coal projected to exit U.S. electricity by 2033.
Trump
might have killed it.
Trump might have killed it. Well, he might have. The biggest problem for coal is economics. Tom keeps saying it's the economics, stupid. Yeah, well, here it is. Bloomberg and Morgan Stanley, I think, have been listening to him. It shouldn't be surprising that Bloomberg and Morgan Stanley project that coal is on its way out and will be gone from the U.S. market by 2033. And Trump's help for coal was not enough to counter his help for natural gas. This was a strange thing where Donald Trump was trying to help coal, and he was also trying to help natural gas, and he was also trying to help.
Did it?
No, he was helping everybody and also helping their competitors. And, no, it didn't work. And then what he did was he tried to get the coal to export to other countries. And who were the big countries? They all fell into two groups. One of them was the group that is being marketed by Australia, and the second group is that group which happens to be China. So he's got a trade war going on with China. So they're not going to buy coal from the United States, and he's got the Australians trying to sell as much coal as they possibly can.
They're selling it mostly to China.
They're selling a lot of their coal to Japan. They tried to sell it to India, but it didn't work because the Indians are trying to buy less coal. So we'll see what happens. You got more on this?
Well, we talk about it. We're going to talk about it again. The Navajo Generating Station, which is closed now.
We are. Is that the next one?
No, that's coming up a little later on.
Okay. Yeah.
It was the coal project was blamed for hazing up the views of the Grand Canyon.
Yes, and for spoiling things like this picture that we've got at Sequoia National Forest.
Well, the Navajo Generating Station has become a poster child for the ills of coal power generation.
Yeah, I would say it has, and we're going to see it in exactly that light in a few minutes.
It's interesting because they built this generating station in one of the most beautiful parts of America.
Yeah, and it was standing out there like a smear on the landscape, and it's gone now.
Well, let's see. The plant was originally slated to run till 2044, but economics led to utility deciding to close it down early.
It died a little early. Well, we reported years ago a coal-burning power plant, I think it was in Belgium, that closed when it was only 18 months old. We should get going, Tom.
I think we should.
There is our next view.
A nice picture of a truck.
And that's a big truck, and they're charging the truck. They're putting electricity into that truck so it can be stored by the batteries. That is a battery-powered truck. This item is also
very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long-haul truck. That's not a delivery van.
No, that's not a delivery van. I don't think you could take that onto the streets of Brattleboro. You wouldn't be able to turn it.
No, not with the trailer.
Yeah. What do you got for a title for this article?
DHL, which is like a worldwide post office,
Yeah.
DHL teams with Volvo trucks to speed up transition to fossil-free trucking.
Yeah, if there was any question that trucking is turning to electric drive systems, DHL Freight and Volvo Trucks are showing the answer. They have partnered to speed up the introduction of heavy-duty electric trucks to be used for regional transport throughout Sweden. So now you know where this is happening. It's happening in Sweden. But, you know,
well, that's what the article's about, but it's happening elsewhere too.
Yeah, and this is the tip of the iceberg you're looking at here. These trucks are so much cheaper to run than the ones that are powered by diesel oil or gasoline that it's pointless to talk about those systems anymore.
Absolutely.
So
let's move on here. We got one coming up. We got a picture of all things, wind turbines.
Wind turbines, yeah. And there they are on the countryside.
If you look, you can find them.
Yeah, you can. This is from Inside Climate News, and we have achieved the remarkable goal of Friday, February 26th. So, you know, now you know where to look if you want to look at these guys.
This is a good, long, and meaty article.
Yes.
Called How the Race for Renewable Energy is Reshaping Global Politics.
This is interesting, you know, basically. Yeah. Andrew Forrest, chairman of Fortescue Metals Group, searched the world for 5 months to find sites for hydropower and geothermal energy. I should point out that Fortescue's Metal Groups is a big company in Australia. The experience told him that in 15 years, energy will be completely changed, and that will change politics globally. Yeah.
So this is a quote from Forrest. Any country which does not take green energy very seriously but clings to polluting energy will get left behind.
That's really important, and that's something that we in the United States should really understand. We should come to understand, because things are changing so fast. China is dominating the bus market worldwide because they're selling so many electric buses, and the various countries we've seen this, Panama, Colombia, they want to buy electric buses. Chile, they want to buy these electric buses because they're cheap. They cost more initially than gas-powered or diesel-powered buses, but they only cost about 20% as much to run. So the initial
much cheaper to run, and they have virtually no maintenance.
Right. So 4 years down the line, the difference in the cost is paid for, and after that, they're just money makers. And the United States is making buses, electric buses, at a rate of about 1,000 a year. China is making them at a rate of well over 100,000 a year. And you know, if we're not going to prepare for the fact that the world is changing, we're going to be sitting here looking like buggy whip manufacturers, wondering where the market went. So
let's move on here. We got an interesting picture of the chimney falling at the Navajo station.
Well, you were just talking about this a minute ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And this also is from Inside Climate News.
A clean energy milestone. Renewables pulled ahead of coal in 2020.
Yeah, pulled ahead of nuclear, too. The ongoing rise of wind and solar power, combined with the steady performance of hydroelectric power, was enough for renewable energy sources to surge ahead of coal, according to 2020 figures released this week by the United States Energy Information Administration. And, you know, that's been something that's been coming. The numbers have been showing that we were reaching that position, and now we've reached it. And the use of coal in 2020, it dropped so fast that...
Well, I got a number there.
Oh, okay, good.
Was the country's leading electricity source as recently as 2015, and has fallen 42% since.
40
have also passed nuclear.
42%. It has fallen since what year?
2015, 5-6 years.
In 5 or 6 years, it's fallen by 42%. The coal miners are in trouble. They're in real trouble. And by the way,
absolutely.
The energy person, and I forget her name, but the person who is the head of the DOE for the Biden administration said, we're not going to leave any workers behind. And her plan is she wants to get every one of those coal miners who is out of work back employed, doing with good jobs in renewable energy.
Renewables. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Why would we have people out of work? It just doesn't make sense to allow that to happen if you can avoid it. And we can avoid it. So.
Well, we got a nice picture coming up here of an electric van.
Electric van. There it is, an electric van. And this particular article came from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
The UK's largest commercial electric vehicle order yet.
The British Gas, the largest energy and home services company in the UK, put in an order for 2,000 electric vans, which it says is a record number. The company has a fleet of 12,000 vehicles, and it intends to have every single one of those vehicles be electric by 2025. So they
originally wanted to do it by 2030.
Well, this has been the story of renewable energy and the things that use electricity and can be run on renewable energy and energy efficiency. In every single case that I can think of, the numbers that were put out there as the goals have been surpassed. And the story with nuclear energy is if somebody says he's going to put in a nuclear power plant, it's going to cost $5 billion and it's going to take 5 years to build. I figure that kind of figure from nuclear energy, you've got to multiply both numbers by 2. If it's 5 billion, it's going to cost 10. If it's 5 years, it's going to take 10. And that's been there are exceptions, but that has been basically what I've seen.
And they still haven't figured out what to do with the waste.
Oh no, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute too. The thing is, if somebody orders, says they're building a solar farm or a wind farm or a battery or whatever, if they say it's going to be in by the end of the year, they mean it's going to be in by the end of the year. And if they say that it's going to cost a certain amount of money, they mean it's going to cost that amount of money. There's no fooling around. And if their numbers are off, it's because they're being too conservative and the things are coming too fast and they're costing less than the projected amount. And that's what's typical with renewable energy. And, things are just happening so fast, it's incredible. Here, you see these people had, what was it you said, Tom, a date of 2030 to get all the vehicles?
That's what they originally planned to do, but they've lowered it to 2025.
So instead of 10 years, their goal is to have this done in 5 years.
Exactly.
And with 12,000 vehicles, some of those vehicles are going to be new or nearly new. And they're talking about replacing those vehicles within 5 years. So they're not dilly-dallying around here. This is something that's going to happen quickly.
Well, they've got an economic advantage by doing so.
Absolutely. That's what it is. You keep saying it's all about the money. Well, that's what it is. It's all about the money. We are, by the way, up to Saturday, February 27th, and we've got another article.
There's some jalopy here.
This is a jalopy. I just couldn't resist that.
That is nice. Wow.
That's a beautiful car. That is a Rolls-Royce for anybody who's interested. And it's a beautiful car, but it happens that it has been altered.
Well, that's what the article's about.
It sure is. This is from Clean Technica.
Instavolt teams up with Everati to give iconic cars an electric future.
Yeah, Instavolt and Everati are teaming up to work on the world's most iconic and classic cars. Everati re-engineers classic cars into zero-emissions vehicles, and then it restores them. Now, that Rolls-Royce looks like it could have been restored. It looks pristine. The cars get a state-of-the-art electric drivetrain, electric power units, and battery packs. And in this case,
it's a modern car.
It's a modern car. It looks like it's got a happy owner.
Yeah, it's a modern car, but it looks like an old timer.
Well, it is an old timer. It happens to be a salvage. salvaged jalopy. I doubt that this was ever anything that anybody ever called a jalopy. When I was a kid, 17 years old, I worked on a farm that belonged to a very, very, very wealthy woman. And she had I don't know how many cars could fit into her garage. I think she had a garage that would fit 8 cars or something like that. And one of the cars that was in there, which just sat there, was a Rolls Royce. It looked rather like this, as a matter of fact. And it was in perfect condition, except that the paint was peeling.
The ashtray was full.
Yeah, right. The paint was peeling off the hood.
Oh, wow.
But the paint was peeling off the hood in sheets. I'd never seen this on a car before. And underneath that was what looked like galvanized steel in perfect condition.
Wow.
That, and it was like the car needed to be restored, but it needed so little to be restored. And here, this car, we have no idea what that looked like before it was restored. But we do know that the loudest thing in that car is almost certainly the clock.
Well, you got a car that looks like that, you take care of it.
You try to. I wouldn't be able to. I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford to park a car like that.
Well, in case you're wondering who InstaVolt is,
yeah,
they operate a rapid public charging network in the UK.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, I think we should. We got a picture of all things, a Tesla.
A Tesla, and this, again, we're having a lot of articles from Clean Technica this week.
EVs are ready at price parity. But the Electric Cars Act would make them irresistible.
Absolutely. Bloomberg Green contributor Nathaniel Bullard makes the case that EVs are already at price parity with conventional cars because inexpensive new cars have pretty much vanished. Now, this is an interesting thing that they go into in the article, but let me finish the blog here. Now, Congress is looking at legislation that will give EVs a clear advantage. The price of EVs has been going down, but it's been going down into territory where there used to be cheap gas cars, and those cheap gas cars aren't really available.
They're not making them anymore.
They're not available on the market anymore. So all of a sudden, these EVs are falling into an area in the market where they don't have really competition for price. And on top of that, Congress is talking about continuing incentives for people to buy EVs, and people are going to be buying EVs. I have absolutely no doubt of that.
Well, this Electric Cars Act is going to contribute to that.
Yeah.
They're going to extend the existing federal EV tax credit,
which I think is $7,000. That's my recollection.
Right, it's about that.
Yeah, and we looked at
significant.
Yeah, we looked at different vehicles in the past. The Aptera comes to mind. I think the cheapest Aptera, which has a range of 240 miles, as I recall, 250 miles maybe, the cheapest Aptera, that would bring the price of that vehicle, which is a two-person vehicle, and it's a three-wheel vehicle, but it has
we talked about that.
Yeah, it would bring the price of that thing down to where it would be pretty close to $20,000. And although the idea,
good deal.
It is the idea of buying, I think back and think about how my father was moaning and wailing about the fact that he had to spend $2,700 on a station wagon from General Motors, and I just think about that, $2,700 for a new car. Well, things have changed since 1959.
The times they are changing.
Yeah, they are indeed. And, here we've got, I think, Tony Seba said, when it comes, it's going to come fast. And what this article uses is irresistible. And I think that's what we may be talking about.
Well, we got a picture of a nodding donkey there.
A nodding donkey, also known as a pump jack. And this particular article comes from CNN.
Oil is up nearly 70% since the election, a record in the modern era.
Yeah. The oil market is starting the Biden era with a bang, and COVID-weary Americans returning to the roads. By the way, have you had your jab, Tom?
No, I haven't.
I got mine, and I hate needles. And this thing, I sat down, and I hate watching needles, and the girl was fooling around with the hem of my T-shirt, and I felt a little bit of a prick, and then I said to her, "How long is this going to take?" And she said, "Oh, it's done." It was absolutely painless.
It wasn't much, huh?
Oh, it wasn't much.
I'm just waiting. I'm really not against it. I'm just postponing it.
Yeah, well, people do that.
Okay. I'm sheltering at home. I'm not exposed to anybody. So why bother?
Yeah. The oil market is starting the Biden era with a bang, and COVID-weary Americans returning to the road this spring and summer will be greeted by higher prices at the pump. Since the election, oil prices are up sharply to $63.50 at Thursday's close, a rise of 69%. And, Tom, every time I see that kind of thing, I think the price of oil goes down, it means that the oil companies are not making money. The price of oil goes up, and all of a sudden they can't compete with renewable energy anymore because they're charging too much. They're in a bad situation. And
this seems to believe that the worst of the pandemic is in the rearview mirror. And the U.S. economy is poised to roar back to life.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's true.
I think the particular problem that the oil industry has is, even if the economy is coming back to life, the economy is going to be buying those cheap electric cars. What are we're not, I think we're moving away from oil. And by the way, there was an article about that, I think it was today, where Morgan Stanley and Bloomberg were saying basically the oil industry is going to be completely worthless in the not very distant future. So,
well, I would tend to agree with it.
Yeah, absolutely. What have they got to offer? Well, not much, really, when you get right down to it.
Well, the only thing they have is the ubiquity of the ability to refill.
Yeah, and
when that changes, and it is in the process of changing, that's all over.
I think about Brattleboro as it was when I was 9 or 10 years old, and there are a lot of gas stations in this town that aren't there anymore.
Huh.
That corner of School Street and Elliott Street. There's a used to be, or maybe still is, a dry cleaner there.
Yeah,
that building looks like a gas station building because that used to be a gas station.
I can believe that. It looks like a gas station.
Yeah, and then if you go up Main Street to where there's that block that people go around in one direction, which is in front of the municipal building.
Yeah.
That intersection, which is now kind of like a park, used to have a gas station on it.
Okay.
And there's other ones too that have just disappeared. They aren't around anymore. We should get ahead. We're up to Sunday, February 28th, and we have an item from Renew Economy and a picture of the globe with a nice picture of Australia on it.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Environmental collapse, : It's time the economists put the planet on their balance sheet.
I gotta
say, point.
I agree with this. A ground-sparing economic account on biodiversity indicates that economic practice has to change because the world is finite. Climate change results from a larger issue, the threat to our life support systems from the plunder and demise of the natural environment.
Absolutely.
This is one of the problems with the so-called free economy. The problem is, if you take the kind of Ayn Rand approach, the free economy as they call it approach, what they're saying ultimately is that nothing has any value unless you can monetize it, which means the environment that we live in doesn't have a value because you can't monetize it. Love has no value because you can't monetize it. I'm sorry, you cannot sell that to people. But they've got to understand the environment is the same kind of way.
Well, as a takeaway from here, environmental collapse points out the need for a complete change in economic thinking based on realities of finite worlds.
Absolutely.
We can no longer afford for nature to be absent from accounting systems.
Absolutely. And there are ways to make nature part of those accounting systems, and we've talked about them. It's the social cost, which the people who happen to be in favor of the so-called free market, especially the ones that sell oil and gas, say, no, that's no fair. We shouldn't be doing that. Okay, do you have more on this one, Tom?
Nah, let's move on.
Okay.
This picture of the Drought Monitor.
Yeah, this Drought Monitor, by the way, for anybody who's interested, look in the lower right corner of the screen and you'll see the words droughtmonitor.unl.edu. UNL is the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. So this Drought Monitor is put together by the University of Nebraska as part of a deal that they have made with the USDA and NOAA and a bunch of other organizations. And they put this up every week. So you can watch the droughts that we have progress week to week. This particular
you can see where they're happening now. I mean,
you sure can.
We're in a drought right here.
Well, we're kind of...
It's in a yellow drought, not a red or
yeah, the yellow drought is abnormally dry. They say that's not really a drought, but there are kind of tan areas of Vermont and New York. And it looks to me like Windham County is dry, and Windsor County, which is just north of us, might actually be in a moderate drought. But look at what's happening in the Southwest, and that's been going on for, I don't know, 10 years, off and on.
Well, that's serious drought.
That's serious drought, and that's a drought that is really, really bad. And let's see, what do we got here? This again is from Clean Technica. What do you have for title?
Texas. Texas again? Texas shows us our water future with climate change. It ain't pretty.
It ain't pretty. Earlier this week, 1 out of 22 Americans didn't have water or was on a water boil alert. Texas didn't suffer this alone, as people in Oklahoma and Louisiana also lost water. I believe they did in Mississippi as well. Sadly, the storm is just a glimpse of how climate change will impact our water supplies. We haven't really talked about the impacts of the problem in Texas. We've talked about it in terms of electricity, but in terms of water, it's a problem. And one of the big problems here was the water treatment plants couldn't treat the water. And so the waste was being dumped into rivers.
Well, again, they failed to modernize. They failed to weatherize.
Yeah.
And they knew what to do and how to do it. They just didn't.
Yes, and that's really the sad part of it. They treated the whole thing. They're basically saying, we don't want to tell people how they have to live. We're not going to regulate the market. But the market doesn't have any incentive to self-regulate when it comes to pollution, water, electricity availability, things of that nature. There just isn't an incentive there. And, again, we're talking about the free market and the fact that if you can't make money on something, there's no point in doing it. So...
Let's move along. Take a look at Bill Gates and his new book.
I'm buying this book. I want to see.
Good.
I am. I'm gonna write about it. This is from Hanky Ora. Hank. I don't know how to pronounce it.
That's Korean.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Han Kiora, probably. Okay. What do you got for a title?
Bill Gates is wrong about nuclear power.
Yeah. In his new book, Bill Gates argues that nuclear power is needed to respond to climate disaster because it's the only emissions-free source of energy that can be supplied around the clock. Wrong. He fails to see that the paradigm it fits in is obsolete, is not needed, and it still has unresolved waste issues. I got news for you, Bill. Hydropower is around the clock. Batteries are around the clock. We don't need, well, as I said, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to find out what he's got. I looked at a interview that he had with Anderson Cooper, and it was a long interview. It was like 15 minutes long, and it looked to me like Bill Gates has got the idea that in order to be a solution to the problem, what he comes up with has got to be actually run by big business. I don't know that that's true, but that's the way it looks. And we're at a point here where we've got things like, what is the man's name? Anderson in Australia came up with that thing called natural sequence farming. We need that in the United States.
Absolutely.
But that's not going to be done by big business. It's going to be done by small farmers and people who live in neighborhoods. And
big businesses are just looking for unit crops.
Yeah. And Bill Gates, there were other issues that we had in this too. Did he talk? We had Steve Rucroft on our show a couple of times talking about energy amplifiers. I would bet that Bill Gates doesn't know what an energy amplifier is, but it's a nuclear reactor that uses the waste and doesn't make any. And that's what we need. We need to get rid of the waste. That's one of the
problems. We haven't figured out what to do with our waste.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is an answer.
There is.
And from this article, it says there's not a government on Earth that can deal competently with an accident at a nuclear plant.
Well, yeah.
Talk about Fukushima has cost so far more than $200 billion US.
Yeah, you can do a lot.
It's not even counting the radioactive wastewater.
No, it isn't. And just think of what you and I could do between us with $200 billion. I mean, we could invite everybody in New England to that party.
Yeah, we could take a trip to New Hampshire.
Well, I don't know. Not in my car because I don't have one anymore. Okay,
this is a good takeaway here.
Yeah.
Nuclear power may be a low carbon source of energy, but it's not renewable.
Yeah, it's not clean, and that has to be addressed. Okay, we're up to Monday, March 1st, and we have a picture of a graph.
And it's Wrights Law.
It's Wrights Law. It says right at the top.
You're going to tell everybody what Wrights Law is.
I will indeed. But before I do that, this is from Clean Technica. Why don't you read the title?
Will Tesla hit Elon's 20 million vehicles per year by 2030 target? And my comment on this is you don't bet against Elon Musk.
I think you're probably right there, Tom. You don't bet against Elon Musk. I mean, the number that he's talking about is absolutely unbelievable. But the idea that he could have built a 100 megawatt battery in South Australia within 100 days from the time the contract was signed was also unbelievable.
And
that battery was up and running after 98 days.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the biggest targets, one of the bolder targets announced by Tesla CEO Elon Musk last year was to reach a 200 million vehicle per year production capacity before 2030. He projected 30 million EVs sold annually by all companies in 6 or 7 years. Are these goals possible? And you just said it, Tom. You don't bet against Elon Musk.
Well, top-selling automakers are hitting 10 million vehicles per year.
Yep.
But Tesla has a track record of accomplishing what others consider to be impossible.
Impossible. Absolutely. And by the way, Wrights Law is a law that says when you have a new technology, the first time you implement that technology, it's going to be expensive. And from there on, the amount of the cost of anything produced with that technology is going to decline in a very predictable manner.
Which is that straight line in the graph.
Straight line. You'll notice that the numbers on the bottom are 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Every time you multiply this by 10, you have a specific fall in the cost. But if you look at that, you'll see that these costs are falling in the direction of like $20,000. And they keep going. They're going to be paying you to take it. I don't think it'll get to that, Tom. But yeah, it's going to be. We're getting into a different world. Okay, we should move on. I've got a picture. We got a really pretty picture here. There's no wind turbines in this. There's no wind farm. It's just the Atlantic Ocean. Just the Atlantic Ocean. Again, from Clean Technica. What do you got for a title? Atlantic Ocean circulation weakest in a millennium. That's not good news. This is very worrisome. The Atlantic Ocean circulation underpinning the Gulf Stream is weaker than at any point in the last 1,000 years, largely due to climate change. And that could cause disastrous sea level rise on the U.S. eastern seaboard. New research published in the journal Nature Geosciences. I got news for you. If we have disastrous sea level rise on the U.S. eastern seaboard, it's not going to be just disasters in the United States. It's going to be disasters all over the world.
Oh, absolutely.
This is not good.
It's certainly going to impact New York City.
Oh, man. Just think about this for a second. Rome is at the same latitude as New York City.
Okay.
New York City is cold in the winter. Rome is sunny.
Rome is warm, right? That's cool. That's
you
cool.
know, the people who lived in southern England, where I lived, which is about as far north as Hudson's Bay, used to say that a quarter of an inch of snow on the ground was enough to stop traffic altogether because they just don't know what to do with it.
Europe's mild climate is a result of this. This circulation forms a stable belt, a conveyor belt that stabilizes ocean heat.
Yep. Tom, we got to move on.
Okay, we've got another one coming up here of some community solar.
In Indiana. This also is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
Community microgrids, cornerstone of future energy operations.
A full description of microgrids would go beyond their use for energy resilience and make them, quote, the cornerstone of future energy operations, end quote. The Solar Energy Technologies Office, which is part of the DOE, announced this in 2020, and it said it would award $34 million to integration projects, including community microgrids. So the DOE, or at least an office in the DOE, says that the thing that you're seeing on this screen is going to be underpinning the entire grid. It's going to be one of the most important issues for the U.S. electricity grid. This is a clear statement that the times are changing.
Well, we would do well to have one or more community microgrids right here in town.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've got 5 megawatts at the landfill and no battery. And there's a
good location for one on Old Guilford Road.
Yeah, but there's also got to be a way to island that so that if the total grid goes down, there will be at least some part of Brattleboro that still has electricity.
Oh yeah, that's actually easy to do.
I know it's easy to do, except for one thing. You've got to get everybody cooperating, and that means the people.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem. It's not just Green Mountain Power. It's the inspectors, and it's the regulators, and it's all the rest of those people. It's the
people who own the land.
Well, it's the people who own the land too. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, I think we should.
We have a picture here of a wind farm. And it really does.
If you look hard, you'll see a lot of turbines.
There's a lot of turbines there. This is from Yahoo News Canada. By the way, this picture came from Unsplash, and a lot of the pictures that I use come from Unsplash or Wikimedia Commons, and I use those because I either don't find or don't like the pictures that I find with these articles. But here it is. What do you have for this is Yahoo News Canada. What do you have for a title?
100% renewable energy could power the world by 2030, according to experts.
Yeah. Electricity from solar, wind, and water could power the entire world in less than 10 years. Leading energy experts say renewable energy could also be the sole energy source for the world's heating, cooling, transportation, and industries by 2035. Now, I want to point out the guy who is at the center of this whole thing is Tony Seba, who we have talked about. He's a futurist. He's got some really interesting things to say, and I happen to think that it's more likely that he's correct than not.
Well, the article says 100% renewable global energy system would, quote, save money, create jobs and wealth, save lives, and get humanity ahead of the curve to prevent runaway climate change.
Absolutely. And for that reason.
They also say that solar is now by far the cheapest source of energy.
By far. Yeah, by far. Okay. Our next item, unless you have more with that. Do you have more with that?
Well, electric vehicles can be powered for free. You got an electric car, you build a carport, put some solar panels on the top.
Absolutely.
And you're not paying for gas anymore.
Yeah, I know. And we've talked about that also with the Aptera. You can, the car has its own solar panels right on it,
solar, yeah.
built into the skin. So it just looks like a normal car, except that it's got some kind of diamond-shaped things all over the
There's another
hood.
car that we saw. I don't know if we talked about it or not. It's built in, I think, Rhodesia. And it looks like a Jeep. But it's got solar panels all over the roof.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, and I had a feeling that you would find this interesting particularly, Tom.
It's a zero-emission ship.
Yeah. And what do you have for a title for the article?
Well, we got Yara. You got to figure out who Yara is.
Well, I'll explain.
Yara kickstarts green ammonia industry with green hydrogen.
Okay.
This is starting to happen, guys.
Yes, it is. Just a couple of months ago, the US DOE was pushing for green hydrogen with a venture aimed at teasing farmers into the market. Now, the global firm Yara has a green ammonia project in Norway that is similar but different and much, much, much bigger. Yara, it turns out, I looked it up, it's a company that is really involved in agricultural systems and in working
fertilizer,
nitrates, yeah, but they're also working on trying to produce a system that really works well for the environment. They're environmentalists. Tom, I've got a question about this ship.
Yeah.
I don't know if it occurred to you, but where is the bridge? I mean, it might
it's on the top of that white part, that's for sure.
But it's all outdoors. There's no indoor component to the bridge.
That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. They've got to have some way of having a bridge.
Oh,
on
yeah.
This.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. Yeah, what can I say? Okay. Well, do you have more on that? Green ammonia is interesting stuff. We could talk about that for a minute.
We might as well, because that's basically what this is about.
Okay, green ammonia. Ammonia is one of those chemicals that is just amazing. It's kind of like there's a few others. Water is amazing. Another one that we're going to talk about is titanium dioxide. Amazing compound. Ammonia, however, can be used not only as a fertilizer, but it can also be used as a fuel. And there's different ways of using it as a fuel. It burns. And you can actually use it to power an internal combustion machine, although I wouldn't suggest it because you'd probably wind up having a lot of NOx emitted from that. But it can be used with what are those things called? The ones that work with.
I'm trying to read your mind.
So, yeah, you're trying to read my mind. Fuel cells. They can be used in fuel cells. If the fuel cells are built for ammonia.
Yeah, they can. You're right.
They can be used there. So Yara is really getting into this green ammonia thing. And the green ammonia is green hydrogen, green ammonia is just becoming a huge, huge, huge market.
Well, you can't transport hydrogen very well.
No, but you can transport ammonia. Yeah,
you can turn hydrogen into ammonia very easily.
Yeah, this is a different paradigm from what we've seen in the past, and it might make a big difference. Okay,
well, it is a different paradigm, and it's an encouraging paradigm, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, our next item is it shows a wind farm in South Australia.
Is that what that is? That's a wind farm, huh?
This is from Renew Economy. And what do you have for title?
Against the odds, South Australia is a renewable energy powerhouse. How did they do it?
Less than 2 decades ago, all of South Australia's electricity came from fossil fuels. Last year, Renewables provided 60% of the state's electricity. The progress came as the national climate policy was all but paralyzed. How did it happen? And I want to point out that a lot of this was done by the rather conservative government that South Australia has now that looked at what had been done by the Liberal government, and I'm using
liberal in Australia means conservative.
Yeah, I'm using those words, liberal and conservative, the way we use them in the United States.
The real Liberal Party in Australia is the Labor Party.
Yes, that's right. The current South Australian government is Liberal, which means it's conservative. And the previous one was Labor, which means that from our point of view, it's Liberal. The previous one built up a bunch of contracts for a microgrid. It wasn't a microgrid. It was one of those situations where people were working together over a large area. And the current government, when it got in, swore that they were going to take those contracts apart and go back to just burning coal. And then they looked at the money.
That's what it is, the money.
And they said, we can't do that.
As the world shifted to cheaper renewables,
And
fossil fuel businesses became commercially unviable.
Yeah.
And to add to that, South Australia has abundant wind and solar resources.
And it's also the place where Elon Musk went and said, if you people will put in 100 megawatt, will contract for 100 megawatt battery, I will put it in 100 days or you get it for free. And
which he did.
He did. He put it in, and the battery turned out to be saving them so much money that they did. That was part of the reason why they said, no, we've got to go to renewable energy because this battery is saving us so much money. Okay, Tom,
There's an interesting article coming up here.
Yeah.
It's about low carbon concrete.
Yes, and we are up to Wednesday, March 3rd. And this article, we've just been doing Clean Technica like mad this week. It's another one from that.
Well, they've had some good stuff this week.
They did
Low
indeed.
carbon concrete, starting from the ground up.
Yes, of all global CO2 emissions, 8 to 11% come from the manufacture of concrete. Several companies use CO2 or use CO2 or reduce CO2 emissions in their products in different ways to produce what is called green concrete products that range from being somewhat lower carbon to zero carbon to carbon negative, which means that if you take all of the carbon that's emitted from manufacturing the cement and you say, okay, what is the net effect of this? You discover that the cement actually absorbs more carbon dioxide than you emitted.
Well, here's what they're doing.
Yeah.
With recently available technology, CO2 can be captured and converted to calcium carbonate. Now,
Yes.
That's limestone.
It sure is.
Okay? So they're adding this limestone to the ready-mixed concrete instead of sand.
Okay.
That's how it's becoming carbon negative.
Yeah.
This is not CO2 capture and storage. It's CO2 capture and use.
And, interestingly enough, the limestone, the calcium carbonate, has another source too. And that's what the shells of clams and things like that are made out of.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
So, we've got a lot of different routes to get to this.
So if we eat a lot of seafood.
Yeah, right. And those things can be grown. This is not
absolutely.
We don't have to destroy the ocean by digging up all the clams.
And I like oysters.
Do you? Wow, I like oysters too, but I can't afford them. Okay, we
got a nice picture coming up of a Volkswagen ad.
Well, I was talking about titanium dioxide being amazing.
There it is.
Just a few minutes ago. Here it is. This is also from Clean Technica.
Volkswagen uses pollution-absorbing paint to advertise the ID3 in the UK. And by the way, the ID3 stands for Intelligent Design.
Yeah.
And it's a 4-door hatchback. It's a nice little car.
It's a electric car.
It's an electric car.
From VW.
It's a family car. It's a nice little family car.
Yeah. Volkswagen ID3 EVs are manufactured using 100% renewable electricity. Volkswagen plans to recycle the batteries in its EVs. Now, its large outdoor ads for the ID3 use special paint called Airlight to paint the exterior walls of buildings in London. Airlight absorbs several pollutants. Well, actually, it doesn't necessarily absorb the pollutants, but it does have an effect on sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, but
it neutralizes the nitrogen oxide.
Yeah, and one thing that I don't think that was even mentioned in this article is it catalyzes turning methane into carbon dioxide, which is...
I don't think it mentioned that either.
I don't think it did, but this is something that I've been aware of for quite a while. All you need is to have this thing be in the sunshine.
Well, 1,000 square feet of this airline paint can filter out as much air pollution out of the air as a comparable area with vegetation.
There you go. And one of the things about titanium dioxide, for anybody who's interested, if you've ever eaten a donut that had confectioner's sugar on it, you've eaten titanium dioxide probably.
Really, huh?
Well, they use this stuff everywhere because it's white, but it's not just white. It's more than white. It actually gives off light more than it absorbs. Does
it really?
Yeah, if it kind of glows.
It's whiter than white.
It's whiter than white, yeah. It kind of glows, and well, there used to be detergents that advertised with that. Whiter than white. And this is what it was. It was titanium dioxide. And you'd get titanium dioxide in your white shirt. And if you were out in the sunshine, or if you were under certain kind of UV bulbs, that shirt would actually give off slightly more light than it absorbed, because it would be taking the ultraviolet light that was hitting it and turn it into visible light. And this is one of the things that titanium dioxide, it's an amazing chemical. Okay, we should probably go to our last article.
What's the last item here? We got a big picture. Who's that guy?
I don't know.
John Kerry.
Yeah, this is from CNN.
He's got a warning for big oil.
He's got a warning for big oil, and they better be listening, because if they aren't listening, they're going to lose a lot of money.
Let me quote his warning.
Yeah, go ahead.
You don't want to be sitting there with a lot of stranded assets. You're going to wind up on the wrong side of this battle.
Yeah. John Kerry had some tough talk for the leaders of big oil. The message was embrace clean energy or get left behind. You just heard the quote from Tom. Kerry said all this at a energy conference of CERAWeek, which is run by IHS Markit. And IHS Markit is a financial advisor, as I recall.
By the way, this guy Kerry is Biden's special envoy for climate.
Yeah, John Kerry is not a joke. He knows a lot about
level job. He's got a good job.
This is a cabinet level job. Wasn't he the American ambassador to the United Nations at one point? I think he was. I think he was.
Sure, I don't know.
I think he was the one who signed the Paris Climate Accord document for the United States in 2015. But anyway, there he is, and so that is the end of our.
You're going to be hearing more from this guy because, like I say, he's got an important job. It's cabinet level.
Oh yeah,
it's right up his alley.
And
you're hearing about him.
There are other people in the cabinet, and I'm thinking of what's her name, McCarthy. What is her name, Tom?
I don't know her name.
McCarthy.
Yeah, I don't know her at all.
Well, she's one of them, and then you've got a bunch of people in the cabinet who have had a lot of experience, and these are people who know what they're doing. John Kerry, obviously, he was the person who negotiated the 2015 climate accord for Barack Obama.
He was running for president a few years ago.
He was indeed. And, I didn't vote for him. I would be much more likely to today because I've seen him do things that I thought were impressive. Okay, that is our last item.
That's it.
We have a slide that says have a prodigiously tranquil week.
That's a good idea.
And Tom and I are actually, I guarantee, we are both waving right now. This is not a joke.
Absolutely.
This is what we do. And we hope that you all have a prodigiously tranquil week. Stay out of drafts. Don't get COVID-19. Be safe and come back.
You all come back and listen to us, you hear?
Okay. I'll talk to you later, Tom.
Adios.
Bye-bye.